Hi folks, I'm Chris Marshall with Woodworker's Journal magazine, and this is our June 2013 print issue Small Shops Journal project. It's a barbecue cart made for your patio or deck, and it's got a serving tray that fits right on top. Now when we designed this project, we outfitted it with a lot of box joints. There's box joints on the corners of the box that holds the drawer. There's box joints on the corners of the drawer carcass, and box joints on the corners of the serving tray. Now, if you've made box joints before, you already know how the process works. Typically, you use a shop-made jig at your table saw with the dado set or at the router table with the straight bit. And while that method certainly works, it's not without its challenges. Let me explain. Here's a fairly typical shop-made box joint jig. It's attached to my saw's miter gauge, and it has a pin in the fence that's a specific distance away from where my dado blade passes through the jig's fence. Now that pin serves as an index for referencing each of my slot cuts that also form the pins of the joint. Now there's a critical relationship going on here. The thickness of this pin, the distance the pin is away from the dado set, and the width of the dado set have to match almost exactly. And if they don't, it throws off the tolerance of the joint. The joint will be too loose or too tight, and that's not what I want. And on a shop-made jig, the only way to change that relationship is to try a different pin size, try a different spacing, shim out your dado set, and make lots and lots of test cuts in the process. What's even more frustrating is, anytime you want to change the size of your box joints, you pretty much have to build a new jig. Well, for our small shop journal project this time, I wanted a better solution than this. And I think I found the answer with INCRA Tools' new IBox jig. It came to market last year, and I've been curious about it ever since it came out. So our small shop journal project was a perfect opportunity to try it out. It's got some innovative features that make it much faster and easier to set up box joints. It's made mostly of extruded aluminum, and it's got a steel miter bar on the bottom that fits any 3/4 inch wide miter slot of a table saw or router table. And there are also adjusters so you can snug this up for a perfect fit. The jig is guarded on the back and the front for safety. But what's really revolutionary is what's hiding inside the fence. INCRA Tools calls it a positioning engine. And what it amounts to is a dual pitch lead screw system that you can control with two knobs on the end of the fence. Those knobs move a pair of positioner plates on the bottom of the jig in or out in relation to one another, as well as away from the dado set. And the positioner plates serve the same purpose as an indexing pin on a scrap-made jig. So once you've made a test cut, you just dial in the positioner plates to fit inside the test cut you've made, regardless of your dado width. You set the jig to fit the dado, and that's a real convenience. And then, once you've got the jig set up for your dado, you're basically ready to cut box joints. Cutting with the IBox jig is just like using a scrap-made jig. Fit the edge of the first workpiece against the pin plates and clamp it to the fence to make the first slot and pin cut. Then unclamp and place this slot over the pin plates, reclamp to make the second pin and slot cuts, and so forth, all the way across your first workpiece. Then you'll use the pin on the edge of the first workpiece to index the slot cut on the edge of the mating workpiece. If you've used standard box joint jigs before, the process will be very familiar. And one final note, the IBox jig will cut any box joint size ranging from 1/8 inch up to 3/4 of an inch. It sure helped out on our serving tray cart project, and it's just gratifying to have joinery come together this well so easily. So I hope you'll consider building one of our serving tray cart projects, and if you do, consider using an IBox jig. It was a good way to go. Thanks for watching.